Hello, and welcome to another episode of Breaking Mayberry, the show that brings you good times and great oldies, but neither of those, actually. I'm one of your hosts, Marty Schneider.
I'm the other host. I'm Dan Ledwig. Hey, Marty.
Just gave a bunch of promises I cannot keep.
Aggressively the opposite, I would argue. Hey, Marty.
Yes, Dan?
Can I tell you about a theory I've formed about just people in general?
I don't know where this is going, but okay, sure.
All right. So, are you aware of the 2002 film Master of Disguise starring Dana Carvey?
Yes, I am aware of this.
Did you ever see it?
I did see it.
Do you remember the scene where they have to try to sneak into the Turtle Club and Dana Carvey, misinterpreting the name, dresses like a human turtle?
Correct, yeah. He asks if he is not turtley enough for the Turtle Club.
Yeah, wears a bald cap suit that's also a shell. Marty, are you aware of the fact that while they were filming that, 9/11 happened?
It is my favorite piece of IMDb trivia.
That they had to do a solemn moment of silence for 9/11 while Dana Carvey was in full turtle regalia.
They gathered the whole cast and crew and in costume just did a moment of silence in remembrance of those lives lost in 9/11. And then he turned it on. He turned on the Mr. Turtle magic because Dana Carvey's a professional.
They would want him to finish Master of Disguise.
If Dana Carvey didn't finish Master of Disguise, the terrorists win.
Exactly. Then they take our freedom away. Our freedom to make Master of Disguise. A movie where the bad guy's big characteristic is that when he does his menacing laugh, he farts. I fucking loved that movie as a kid. Well, Marty, my theory on human nature is that when you tell that fact to a room full of people, there are two kinds of people. Those that say, why do I find that funny? What's wrong with me? And people that say, why would you possibly find that funny? What's wrong with all of you?
I'm going to take a wild guess here and say that you recently did that to a room full of people.
Yeah. I'm
going to say maybe your girlfriend's family.
Yeah.
And that the response was definitely the latter.
It varied, yes. Yeah, there was, it was actually basically a 50-50 split of those surveyed, which is why I think it's the perfect segmentation of society. And the people who are the former are basically human beings I can connect with. Yeah. How's that for a fucking intro?
It's better than anything I have, so...
I think we were all really brutal on Master of Disguise at the time. I think that movie, in its own way, fucking ruled, because I have never had my mind blown as a child.
Shut up.
No. No children's movie made me that happy. I watched Pixar movies, acclaimed Pixar movies, and was like, yeah, this is pretty good. And I saw Master of Disguise, and kid me was just pumping his fucking fist.
Shut up, Dan. They're gonna make us watch it.
Yes.
Shut the fuck up.
To make me and Marty rewatch Master of Disguise, subscribe to our Patreon.
Dan, god damn it, they're gonna make us watch Master of Disguise, and I hate you. This episode, I think this is going to be kind of a quick Andy Griffith recap. The two episodes we're doing are good.
Yeah.
Like, they're fine episodes. I enjoyed both of them.
Honestly, one of them is the first time the Andy Griffith Show has ever made me laugh. So it does hold a special milestone.
You're a liar.
No, I have never laughed at the Andy Griffith Show. I have said, that's funny, but I have never out loud laughed.
Lies, but okay.
Yeah, truth. I'll swear on a fucking Bible. Bring me a Bible. I'll swear on that shit.
But the episodes we are talking about right now are, at least one of them is a very significant episode in Andy Griffith history. And that's the first episode we're doing right now. It's Season 3, Episode 25, The Darlings Are Coming. Originally airs March 18th, 1963, written by Everett Greenbaum and Jim Fritzl, and directed by, every time he walks into a room, he taps on the wall, saying, there's gotta be a stud around here somewhere, And then he points to himself and says, "Oh, it's me, Bob Sweeney."
He claims that his land is 50 acres, but it's only 45, and that lie keeps him up at night. Bob Sweeney.
And here is your one-sentence summary from Wikipedia. Andy has his hands full when a musical mountain family called the Darlings comes to Mayberry. Mr. Darling rents a hotel room for one person, only to have the rest of his family sneak in the open window and play mountain folk music.
Weirdly, that is an extremely long Wikipedia summary, and that's not even close to the entire plot. That's like one of the longer, and normally we would be like, Jesus, Wikipedia, give the whole thing away. Why don't you? This is the only instance where it has like more than one plot happening.
In order to get a little bit of context on it, so the band The Darlings, on the show, the band is 4 brothers, 1 sister, all adults, and then their father. And the father is played by character actor Denver Pyle. The sister is played by another actress named Maggie Peterson. And then the brothers, who don't say anything throughout the entire episode, who are just kind of standing around the background, they were an actual bluegrass band called the Dillards. Mm-hmm. And they were like not a small bluegrass band. They were incredibly influential on most of your favorite artists. They opened for Elton John on his first tour of America.
Weird.
They are the reason why Led Zeppelin's John Paul Jones decided to pick up the mandolin. Like, they were incredibly influential, and this was kind of a time when bluegrass was having a resurgence, mostly thanks to shows like the Andy Griffith Show and the opening of the Beverly Hillbillies, which this honestly made me feel, I thought that the Darlings were almost like a Beverly Hillbillies parody.
Yeah.
Because they roll up in a jalopy that is overheating.
Yeah, I genuinely, for a sec, I was like, is the Darlings the name of the Beverly Hillbillies? Is this a crossover episode? Yeah,
it is not, Mr. Peanut Butter.
Solid BoJack reference. Do you think they gave the instructions to the band to look as miserable as possible in every scene, or do you think that was like an acting choice they made? Because I could honestly see it going either way, because they look so unhappy to be in every single scene. And I could see that being like, these characters are not happy men, or if they were just terrible actors.
I don't know how they got on the show, and I'm sure if I read my Andy Griffith Show books that are on my shelf or did any research whatsoever, I'd know this.
Never.
They weren't famous. It wasn't like this was a big get for them. They were just like kind of niche influencers. So I have no idea how they wound up on this show or why they built not just this episode, but like 5 other episodes around them.
Can I go out on a limb and sort of, can I really go out on a limb? I'm going to
Sure.
say that Andy Griffith is the reason they're famous. He was probably like their benefactor. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Andy Griffith probably found him on the bluegrass scene, was like, I'm going to make these kids famous, put him on the Andy Griffith Show, and then started getting him booked.
Oh, just like we did with Max Ludwig.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and now he's selling out venues all across the
Twitch.
Yeah, all across Twitch. Jonathan Twitch called his cousin Steven Twitch and was like, "Hey Steven, I got that hot new sound you're looking for. You know how you've been looking for a kid to play Castlevania?"
Poorly? Well, listen to this.
Yeah.
That metaphor got a little mixed in the middle there, but I liked it. Let's go ahead and let's break this down. So basically the opening of the episode is that this jalopy overheats, it breaks down, and there's this steam pouring out of the radiator, which doesn't have a radiator cap, and this rassin' old man gets out of the front seat. They have a horse trough. Andy calls it the memorial trough, and I'm like, memorial to what? To a horse?
Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, time to stop, because it is not a horse trough for horses, because Mr. Darling is very clearly like, there's no horses in this town, and Andy's like, yes, of course not. It is a memorial horse trough. So they, instead of having like a fountain or any sort of like nice looking memorial, they just have a fucking horse trough.
But it is a fountain though, because there is water constantly trickling into the trough. So that's what I thought it was. I thought he was just like using the town fountain. He gets out, Father Darling and he starts using his hat as a bucket. He starts using his hat to shovel water from the horse trough into the radiator.
Yeah, he has a fantastic line of, he says, she can usually handle about 3 or 4 hats full as he's, like, dumping it in. As he's doing that, Andy, like, rolls up as he does, just kind of like, hey, what's going on? And it's a special thing about the episode is that Mr. Darling immediately throws Andy off his fucking game and keeps him there. Like, Andy is on his heels this entire episode.
It's a very weird thing to see, and one of the commenters on the Ultra Reliable Mayberry Wiki pointed out that it feels like a Season 1 episode, and I think you've hit on why that is. It's because it's been the first time in a long time we've just seen Andy going, what? Yeah. What are you? What is going on here?
Yeah, Andy has like one moment of dominance in this, and it is mostly Andy just being like, no, honestly, no, because it is mostly Andy being like, hey, I'm doing an Andy Griffith move. I'm clever. I gotcha. Ha-cha-cha. And then every single time Mr. Darling is like, I know you don't. I do not respect you or your authority. You do not rule me. And Andy's like, ah.
Yeah, and to be clear, like, it's not like Mr. Darling is outsmarting Andy. It's not like he's tricking Andy. He just doesn't give a shit about Andy. He literally, like a true hillbilly, has no respect for the law or lawmen. And when Andy introduces himself as sheriff, I'm the sheriff around here, Mr. Darling's response is, yeah, more power to you. Yeah. And he just goes back to what he was doing.
It's so boss. Like, Mr. Darling does many illegal things over the course of this episode. And I feel like the reason that he does not go to jail for any of them is that, like, they always cut away. And I feel like what happens is Andy is like, you're under arrest. You're coming with me. And Mr. Darling is like, no, I'm not. And Andy's like, fuck, and just walks away. It's like, no one's ever tried that before. Damn it.
Yeah, let's go ahead and try to explain what is happening here. You'd think that Andy is popping in to be like, hey, do you folks need some help with your car that is obviously broken down? But as soon as, like, his authority is ignored, Andy's immediate response is, yeah, well, it's illegal to dip your hat in our memorial trough. That trough is for horses only. What? What the hell, Andy?
Yeah.
Shut up. Show me in the Mayberry Town statute where it says, thou shalt not dip their hat. Apparently the Mayberry Town statute is also biblical. You shall not dip your hat in our memorial trough. It is only for horses, but also the memory of horses?
Yeah, all the horses that died in the founding of Mayberry. Like Mayberry's founding killed a surprising number of horses. We're still sad about it, and we need to memorialize it. There are so many horse bones in the concrete of these buildings. You guys don't even want to fucking know about it.
But it's right next to an eternal flame memorializing all of the mayor's gerbils and the tomb of the unknown goldfish.
But do you think their kids are like playing in it, like they're like throwing the water at themselves, and adults like just like, hey, our biblical charter says that you're not allowed to do that. That's only for fictitious horses. That's a memorial trough. That's only for ghost horses to drink at. You stay the fuck out of that running water. You're not allowed to use that.
There's zero reason, especially dipping your hat. Now, he does say you can't park here, which, okay, the only reason I can think that you couldn't park in front of that fountain is if that fountain were technically a water source for fire, like it was a fire hydrant or fire plug as they call it, in which case, clearly it's not just for horses unless the horse is on fire, and that's how the horse died.
See, like, if
we just have a fountain in town in case a horse on fire runs through. Like, that's it. You can't park here in case the flaming horse has to get in.
Steve just rolls into town and he's like, Andy, my horse is so dehydrated. If he doesn't get water right fucking now, he's gonna die. Why is there a car here? Oh, damn it.
I told them this would happen.
Oh, God! Oh, Hans! My horse is dead! Oh, now someone's gotta go clean this horse off the asphalt! Oh.
So anyway, yes, that's what Andy tries to tell him. He's like, hey, you gotta move along. At no point in time is he like, do you want me to bring you some water? Do you want me to push you to Wally's filling station? No, he's just like, you gotta move along. And I feel like he probably would have been more helpful if A, the Darlings had indicated that they wanted any help whatsoever, and B, if the adult female Darling was not trying to give him a handy the entire time.
All right. This is simultaneously the most problematic and funniest aspect of the episode is that the Darling daughter is wildly attracted to Andy from minute one and is constantly sexually harassing him, which is like, on one hand, it's hilarious because you get to see Andy actually run away from someone. But B, it's not okay because male sexual harassment isn't okay, and it's like, it's like dudes not consenting to sexual advances is often like used for comedic purposes in America, and it's not good. But also, like, you get to see Andy hop a desk to get away from someone.
Good cancel blocking, Dan. Good cancel blocking.
Yeah. Thought you could cancel us. We're ready. I got this. I watched a YouTube video on this subject.
No, yeah, her name is Charlene. She is probably like 22, 23. Andy, even for the first time ever, is just like, I am old enough to be your father. This is inappropriate. Let's also just point this out. Charlene is a fox.
Yeah.
Charlene is smoking hot.
Yeah.
And we mentioned how obvious Aunt B was with her horniness in the last episode. No, Charlene just almost has her beat.
Yeah.
The instant Andy walks in a frame is just like drooling. She even yells at her dad, like, I just want to look at the pretty man for a little while. But she can't because she is promised. She's already a promised woman. She's promised to, and her father says it so many times, First Class Private A Judd Walsh. And First Class Private A First Class Judge Walsh. Judd Walsh? I don't know.
I think it's Dudley Walsh. I think his name is Dud.
Walsh. Dud Walsh, yeah. Is coming in on the morning bus, and they're there to meet him. That's why they're in Mayberry.
Yeah. He repeatedly says, "You've promised since you were 5."
Yeah. So is he like marrying their two families? Will they combine their farms and then have a whole 3 pigs? Like, what is going on here?
You know what I'm gonna call? The Darlings are actually rich as shit. Like, they have like 70 acres and just a thriving farm with several farmhands. He's just fucking cheap. Like,
I like that reading.
Yeah. He basically he repeatedly emphasizes that the reason she is promised to him is because he left to serve his country. And gets real in Andy's face about it because he's like, do you not respect our army? And Andy's like, what? No, what? And he's like, do you want my daughter to give you a hand job? What? I don't understand. Because that means you hate America. I don't know what's happening. I'm so on my heels more than I have been literally at any point in this entire show.
So that's the basic formula for 9 out of 10 jokes in this episode, is Charlene is chasing Andy, much to Andy's chagrin, and in the middle of it, the father Darling sees it and then gets mad at Andy for trying to whisk his daughter away from her betrothed.
Yeah.
There it is. That's 90% of the jokes in this episode. And you know what? They're funny every time.
It's really good. Every single line that Briscoe Darling has is gold. Like, the man is just shooting half-court shots every single line. It's fantastic. And the guy's delivery is exceptional. Best character on the Andy Griffith Show so far, I think by an easy mile.
Oh, until the next episode.
Oh, yeah, then's another gem. These are 2 fucking good episodes, but for different reasons than the last 2 good episodes.
By the way, according to the ultra-reliable Mayberry Wiki, quote, the inscription on the trough reads, David Mendelbright, 1870 to 1933. Let no horse go thirsty here. So it's a memorial to David Mendelbright, who I guess loved horses.
David Mendelbright, who, in honor of our town, drowned 15 horses.
And also, apparently, Municipal Code 907 is dipping your hat in a horse trough. So that is what the Darlings are in violation of. And I'm just going to say, once again, Mayberry Wiki, you're making this shit up.
There's no way you can read that. There's no way it's in this much fidelity. Like, you can't even make out, like text that's been held up. There's no way you can make up an inscription. Someone just pulled that out of their ass.
So the other key thing that happened in the scene is that Briscoe, Mr. Darling, asks for where they can find a place to sleep. Andy points them towards the hotel, and they get back in the car and almost run Andy over.
Yeah, they almost hit Andy with their car. I just really cannot emphasize enough how much I love Briscoe Darling's open and flagrant disrespect for a law enforcement officer. He is the original ACAB. He started this shit.
So the next scene is at the hotel where Briscoe rolls in, just himself carrying like 2 paper bags. And the man behind the desk is a like Poindextery little dude named John Masters, sorry. And
who we previously saw in the choir episode. He was the choir director who we described as Earth 2 Barney Fife.
Yeah. What happened to Jason? Jason runs the hotel.
Probably during the day, and at night he's a secondary character on Rocket Power.
Jason may have had to retire from the hotel business after grave injury pulling a sick kickflip.
See, he started working as a mascot for Chuck E. Cheese doing their floor shows and just had to get out of the game.
Jason got really into gymnastics, and that was it.
Again, if you are named Jason, Breaking Mayberry is on the record as saying you should change your name if you are over the age of 25.
Start
going by Jay, maybe? That could work. I feel like that's a reasonable name for an adult.
So basically, and here's what the Wikipedia told us was going to happen. Briscoe claims that he's the only one that's going to be in the room, so he pays for the cheapest room possible, goes upstairs, throws out a rope that he has tied to the radiator, and hauls his entire family upstairs. He also asked Mr. Masters if he's going to be around the entire time. So he waits until Mr. Masters goes out for dinner.
The most suspicious thing you could possibly ask, and Mr. Masters gives an honest answer, which is being so bad at your job. Like, yeah, I'm leaving my desk and this cash register at exactly 8:00. Go nuts. Do you also want to know the combination to the safe while I step out? You seem trustworthy. And then later he's like, I found that super suspicious when I asked. And I'm like, then why did you tell him, you fucking idiot? Say it's at 9 and go at 8. People in this town are such goons.
The Darlings then proceed to do the thing that everyone does when they don't want to be caught. Have a very loud bluegrass rehearsal.
They have a hootenanny. It's so good. And again, everyone doing their rehearsal, they're playing beautiful music. They all look goddamn miserable. Like, it is the saddest room. They look like they're playing a funeral, dirge. Not a fun, upbeat hootenanny. It's so fantastic.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia article for Denver Pyle right now. Not going to read how he died. But it's very interesting that you suggested that maybe the Darlings are actually rich. There's Denver Pyle has an entire section in his Wikipedia article that is just entitled Oil Wealth. Apparently, within a few years of his final episode of the Andy Griffith Show, Denver Pyle began investing in oil, buying oil wells that were thought to be near the end of their working lifetimes cheaply when the price of oil was $2.15 a barrel. By 1981, after the oil crisis of the 70s triggered a rise in prices to $46 a barrel, he was rich as fuck. He made more money from oil than over 30 years of acting.
And it looks like he died by getting his arm stuck in a wood chipper. Jesus Christ.
Ironically, actually, just drowned in oil.
Yeah.
An oil derrick just fell on him.
Yeah. A refinery explosion happened, but instead of deafening him like in There Will Be Blood, it just took his head clean off. Breaking Mayberry. Fun facts.
John calls Andy. He's like, I know that they've got a bunch of people in there. So Andy knocks on the door, and then when they open it, it's just Briscoe, and he's just got a jug that he's claiming he can make the music of every instrument with that.
And Andy says, I don't believe you. And he basically just says, like, well, tough shit. I don't really care what you do and do not believe.
Yeah, I thought they were going to do a bit with this. I thought it was a setup for, like, he blows in it and then, like, his son plays the banjo from the closet or whatever. No, they give that setup and then say, fuck you.
Like, it's the power radiating off this man. Because Andy is like, I don't think you can make any musical instrument by blowing that. And he says, well, you know what you can blow, Andy? Me. Keep fucking walking. He's so powerful. I'm in awe of this man.
Andy sees the rope tied to the radiator and he figures out what's happening. And then he takes John out and they wait for the music to start up again. Andy says, wait a couple of minutes and then go knock on the door. He goes around to the back and is just waiting outside the window to catch the darlings and evict them, basically. And so and there's this long bit where, like, one darling brother comes down, and Andy grabs them and goes, shush. Another darling brother comes down, Andy grabs them and goes, shush. Finally, the darling sister comes down and just grabs onto Andy and will not let go.
Her acting of infatuation is very, like, over the top, like Looney Tunes. Oh, man! Yeah. Like that type deal.
She is just groping him openly. They fade to commercial as she is just like rubbing his arm up and down. And
she is grinding on him like it is a middle school dance. Like, she specifically says, thank you for taking me in your big strong arms. And he's like, well, that's only because you were coming down the rope. And she was like, well, how about I climb back up? And it's like, oh, Jesus. I'm surprised this amount of horniness was allowed on television. Also, I do have to say, our listeners are probably tired of hearing us talk about people being horny. And I just want to say, we're tired of talking about it.
Blame the Andy Griffith Show, the horniest show on television, apparently.
We didn't think this was going to be our fucking lives talking about black and white people that are very long ago dead being aroused, but here we all are, okay? All right, we all just gotta roll with it.
No one knew this was gonna be where we end up. No one told you life was gonna be this way.
Clap, 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 clap.
Clap, 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 clap. Yeah. So then
he catches her and she starts like grinding on him, and Briscoe sticks his head out because he's been caught, and he starts to go like, I caught you, and he's just like, don't you try to fuck my daughter, don't you do it. And he's like, I'm not, I caught, don't you do it. And he's like, I don't wanna. Like, good, because you can't. Okay, you're under, no I'm not. Don't you fuck my daughter. I'm gonna come down there. If you get handsy, I'm gonna kick your ass. He's like, oh, okay. Commercial.
Okay. Fade to commercial.
It's so powerful. King shit from this man.
The next scene is on the front porch. Aunt B and Andy are hanging out, and Andy's falling asleep, and Aunt B's just got like 1,000-yard stare. Just vacantly blank staring into nowhere, and finally, Andy, what shall I make for supper? It's so weird.
Yeah. She chides him for not complimenting her white beans, which that sounds disgusting.
No, braised white beans is pretty good, honestly.
Really?
Like, yeah.
I'm picturing like a kidney bean type stuff that's just like cold. It sounds cold.
No. It's more like a stew. It's like a braised bean stew with like vegetables and stuff.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
But Andy didn't compliment it enough, and he says, "Well, I ate 10 bowls. That's a pretty big compliment." Or probably 4 bowls is more realistic. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. Apparently they can. Whatever. Let's move to the actual point. Apparently they can hear the Darlings playing from their porch.
What? I thought Andy's house was like out in the fucking woods. Like
it's not out in the woods because like we've definitely seen that it has sidewalks and stuff, and Opie can walk to school. But it's like I don't know what the map of Mayberry looks like, but the Darlings are in an empty building in like the middle of town, and apparently playing so loud that Andy can hear it from their porch.
If Andy is earshot from the center of town, why does he need to drive to work every day?
Good question.
I don't understand this is continuity breaking. I'm livid. I'm as mad as I've ever been that the geography of Mayberry no longer makes sense.
Anyway, Andy like follows the music until he finds an abandoned building that is like there's dirt on the windows, but he knows what's going on. He knocks on it. There's a little funny bit of Briscoe like making a circle, like cleaning up the glass in a circle so that he can see through and see Andy, whatever. They open up the door. This is a pretty funny instance of groping. Is that and
really
Andy's
good.
sitting there telling them, "Hey guys, you can't just squat in an abandoned building. I have to kick you out." Meanwhile, a hand just reaches out from the door frame and just starts rubbing Andy's pecs. just a hand and an arm.
And to the point where it like only the sons are standing in the background, and for a brief second it looks like one of the sons, while having a vacant expression, is just touching Andy before you realize that it's just like her from out of frame. It's so good. And Briscoe says like, "Oh, which numbers did I violate this time?" And he's like, "A 307. You squatted in a building without the permission of the owner."
And so they start to leave, and Andy's like, "Wait a minute, I've got a place for you to stay." And you go, "Okay, where's this going to go?" And the answer is jail.
Yeah, I really thought he was going to put him in his fucking house.
I did too, but the answer is he puts them in jail. And I don't understand what is the difference between like suggesting someone spend the night in a jail cell after they do something illegal and arresting them.
Yeah. Like,
those seem very similar. The line between them is very thin.
Andy is always like, "You're not under arrest. Come stay in this jail. Hey, you are under arrest. Come in my house. Come live in my house." Like, it's so weird. He uses jail and his home interchangeably.
So does the show.
Yeah.
And so they do. They hang out in the jail cell, and Aunt Bee brings them a bunch of braised white bean stew. And then Andy Griffith's like, "Hey, by the way, I'm Andy Griffith, and I have a rare disease where if I don't play the acoustic guitar on television at least once a week, I'll die. So it's time for me to do this now." And he joins them for a bluegrass session. Whatever, it's fine.
During contract negotiations, executives say like, "Oh yeah, sure, you can get a pay bump. We're going to cut down your on-screen guitar time. How about that? How about that life force that sustains you, Andy Griffith?" Also, Briscoe has an incredible line where Andy is like, "All right, what key are we playing in?" And Briscoe says, "Jump in whenever you can and hold on." It's so good. And like Aunt Bee gives them the white beans, and they're all like super happy. And you think, and then that's basically like the end of the episode, right?
Yeah, like that's where I was like, "Oh, okay." Directed by Bob Sweeney, executive producer, blah blah blah. And I was like, "Oh, there's like 8 minutes left of episode. What
it has
on
the
here?
longest stinger. Everything after this is stinger, but this stinger is basically an entire episode of television. Because after that, the Darlings are waiting at the bus station for Dud to show up, and they're like, "Where the hell is Charlene?" And then we cut to Andy trying to get out of the jail while Charlene blocks it with her entire body. And she proceeds to chase him around the jail cell, which doesn't sound that funny, but Andy Griffith is actually being fucking hilarious.
He sells it very hard.
Because he's not just like, oh no, I'm bobbing and weaving. He jumps furniture. He uses chairs as barricades. At one point he does say, like, Charlene, I'm old enough to be your father. Your promise to that boy. That's gotta mean something. He's in the military service. And her only thing is, I won't tell Aunt B.
Yeah, she says, I won't tell your aunt, which is, what?
Yeah, what? How is that even a viable objection?
And so of course Briscoe walks in on Charlene holding on to Andy, and he's like, okay, fine, you're gonna have to fight Dud. We'll settle this thing correctly. And Briscoe's like, or Andy runs from Mr. Darling to the Darling brothers, who again have done and said nothing but look from completely miserable.
Rewind.
Said, like,
I gotta stop you, Marty. I must stop you. Because the specific way he says that is, we will settle this in the natural way, tooth and claw, nature's law. The craziest fucking way a person has ever said that two people are gonna fight. Yeah, it's insane. And Andy's like, I don't want your daughter. And he's like, tough shit. You're fighting this guy because nature. And then Andy manages to escape, but Briscoe has his sons block the door. So he basically tries to lock the sheriff in his own jail until an army guy can come beat the shit out of him.
Something he'll do on his own. Just leave him alone. He'll lock himself in the cell.
Yeah. It's so good.
He does it like twice a year.
The natural law, tooth of claw. The writer who came up with that was the first Andy Griffith Room writer to experiment with cocaine. They were all on highballs, and he was like, "Gentlemen, have you tried this white powder? It's from the South. I've heard great things about it. Tooth and claw, nature's law. They must fight. Make them fight. And he must fight an army man for love. Briscoe Darling. Hootenanny! Ghost horse! Are you all writing this down? That's what it's like when you're on cocaine, right?
Yeah, no, that's a pretty fair description of cocaine, I think, Dan.
I nailed it.
Andy goes out to tell Dud that we're not going to fight or whatever. Dud comes off the bus and he is a dud. He's just like a dorky looking dude. Like they just went out and found. He looks like Miles Teller, to be honest.
Yeah, he looks like a failed attempt to make Miles Teller.
Yeah,
you didn't quite perfect it.
Like on an Animorphs cover, if a character was turning into Miles Teller, this would be like the second or third incarnation of Marco morphing into Miles Teller. I could have made Miles Teller one of the Animorphs and said that he was morphing into an animal, but I decided to go the opposite route with it.
He's on page 46 of turning into Miles Teller.
The ending for this is not super satisfying, but it's pretty much the wrap up, which is just that Dud gets off the bus and he's like, "Hey Charlene, here's the letter I wrote you, and here's the necklace I got you, and I missed you a whole lot." And Charlene is immediately charmed. They're like, "Okay, let's go run away together," and that solves everything. Do.
Mr. Darling is like, "Oh, I'm really sorry, Sheriff, that you didn't get to fight for her love," and he's like, "Oh well, some men have it and some men don't." And just, he really sells his sheer exhaustion and that he's just happy that this is over.
And that's it. Roll credits.
Yeah.
Ratings. Andy meter? I like this episode.
I think it's a 10.
I'm not going to give it a 10. Because the story is weak. There's barely anything here. But it's enjoyable. It's a fun 20 minutes of television. There's not a whole lot of meat on them bones, but the performances are fun.
Yeah.
And the bluegrass doesn't overstay its welcome like it tends to do. So I'm going to give it an 8.
Yeah. I think it's the first time all season that the music on this show has been good. Briscoe is a refreshingly good guest character. And mostly the entire show is just giving him stages in which to do bits, which I really appreciated. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 10. I think I was delighted through most of it. Barney meter.
So yes, it's not good to play male sexual harassment for a joke, but at no point in time does this show act like it is a good thing. No one's ever oh, come on, you should be happy to be sexually harassed by her. The show does not do any of that. The show doesn't act like it's a good thing. So I mean, Barney meter's pretty low for me. 3.
I'm gonna put it at a little bit higher. Yeah, no one does anything particularly fucked up, but there is that it's a very, very light version of that get him to the Greek joke where when a hot woman does something gross to a man, it's totally cool and okay. Get him to the Greek is the worst example because Jonah Hill is actually raped. Yeah, so I think it's not cool, but it's some weird extended misogyny bullshit. So I'll put it at a 6.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much that, and that concludes that episode. It's a fun one. I enjoyed it. Next episode. Next episode we're doing is Season 3, Episode 26, Andy's English Valet. Originally airs March 25th, 1963, written by Harvey Bullock, and directed by, come on down to the diner, we got the best chicken and biscuits you ever tasted, or my name ain't Bob Sweeney.
All right, one sec, I gotta get this delivery right. The progenitor Bob, the original Bob from which all other Bobs were wrought. Before him, there were only Roberts. Bob Sweeney.
And the one-sentence summary from Wikipedia. English tourist Malcolm Merriweather, a gentleman's gentleman, goes to work as Andy's valet to pay his traffic fine. So let's get this out of the way. I love Malcolm Merriweather.
He delights me. All right.
Everything about this character is perfect, and I love him. I love Malcolm Merriweather.
Malcolm Merriweather is delightful. Is his British accent real?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Really? Because it sounds extremely fake.
Okay, well, let's put it this way. The actor is Welsh, but he's probably doing a fake accent. He's doing what he knows an American thinks a British accent sounds like.
That's what it is, because I was like, okay, his British accent keeps drifting into Irish and Scottish and sounds vaguely Welsh at times. So yeah, he was a Welsh guy doing a fake British accent. That's what that was.
So here's where this man is portrayed by an actor named Bernard Fox, who was also a regular on Bewitched, and he was one of the colonels on Hogan's Heroes. Our audience will know him mostly for the stuff he did at the end of his life. In 1999's The Mummy with Brendan Fraser, he was the drunk old Air Force pilot that flies them in through the storm. And gets attacked by Billy Zane's face. No, not Billy Zane. That dude is not Billy Zane.
The Mummy
Arnold
wasn't
Vosloo.
played by Billy Zane?
No, the Mummy was not Billy Zane.
Are you sure?
Everyone thinks it's Billy Zane. It's a man named Arnold Vosloo. Billy Zane was the bad guy a bad guy in Titanic. He was one of the jerk guys in Titanic, which Bernard Fox was also in. He was one of the fancy first class passengers in Titanic. So that's probably where our audience would know him.
Is there an actor that's more unintentionally funny than Billy Zane? The guy who was also the Phantom, one of the saddest superheroes I've ever seen.
Okay, I love the Phantom. Again, newspaper comic strips, and that's one of the movie is just so 1993. I can't I saw that there was a 1993 version of Phantom. I was like, I've seen what the Phantom looks like. They definitely updated the costume. Oh my god, no, they didn't at all. Billy, what did you do? Billy Zane rocking them purple panties.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So that's Bernard Fox. And in this, he plays like a fop. That's the only way I can think. He's a little nebbish character.
He's a fancy little gentleman.
He's a fancy little gentleman. He's very absent-minded. He's on vacation. He's on holiday. And
I just want to pick him up and then just carry him around while picking him up. I don't want to, I just want to be like, oh, here's my Malcolm. Do you guys want to see my Malcolm? I want to have him like a Furby. That's basically, he's just this adorable little guy that I just want to have. He's wonderful.
Aunt Bee is leaving town again. She's going off somewhere, and she's doing the whole, Andy, will you and Opie be okay since I'm leaving? We've seen this before.
It was so exhausting.
I'm just going to skip past all of this. And blah, 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 blah. Andy is outside trying to load Aunt Bee's stuff into a car. And then a guy on a bike comes by. He asks Andy if he's looking for the town constable. So there's a little bit about the difference between a sheriff and a constable, how they're the same. He mentions that he works for one of the colonels, I'm assuming in the Royal Army.
Yeah. He's a gentleman's gentleman for the colonel. Which is one of the things that a British person says on this show that sounds like it could be right, but definitely isn't. I'm very confident that that's not a thing they say for butler out in England. There are so many English-isms that they just straight up made up. Malcolm just is like, well, you seem awfully shelled. Do you want to quisp over to the boppity-doo? He's just doing, cartoon character gibberish, and everyone's just like, England.
Ah, yes. Would you care to do a whippet on the pop it and pull it? So basically, he's just asking Andy for directions to Route 42. I guess he's going to go there by bicycle. It takes a little while. Andy writes them down on his map, draws him a little route, and says it's kind of complicated. And the other thing you should know is that this gentleman talks a lot and just talks in Britishisms for a while.
Which you'd think in the track record on this show we would hate. Because typically when a character does not shut up, we're like, oh my god, we get it. But this is just I could listen to this little dude go on for hours.
He's from Heckmondwike, England.
Mm-hmm.
And he introduces himself, asks where he can find a constable. Andy figures out it's a sheriff. He directs Malcolm to the hotel. Later on, so basically Malcolm rides off on his bike. He's staring at the map while riding his bike. He causes a traffic accident. A vehicle that stops suddenly to avoid hitting him, loses all of its cargo, and falls off.
Also still hits him. The car.
To be clear, this guy got hit by a car. He got hit by a truck, and so you need to keep that in mind for the entirety of this.
The guy is I had to swerve to not hit him, and as a result, I hit a bunch of crates and broke all my stuff. And it's but you did hit him, though. So you did a super bad job, because you managed to still hit him, but also wreck your truck. So this is kind of on you for sucking so bad. In my book. I'm just I think it's the guy. I don't think it's Malcolm.
So anyway, the guy that hit him, Farmer Floyd or whatever, brings him into jail. Barney drags Malcolm in. Barney goes wildly xenophobic. And while they're talking to Malcolm in the jail, and Malcolm's like, yes, I've done a collywobble this time. I deserve a right dressing down.
I've
made myself quite a bippity boop.
I've tooped the boppet, haven't I?
Yeah.
I've squared the circle. I have to make things right.
And so Barney goes wildly xenophobic. It's this fella ain't from around here. You wonder where he's from.
Maybe Canada.
He calls him a troublemaking foreigner, which...
There we go.
Barney.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, like there's some original sin shit. Like you're seeing something fucking boil.
Malcolm Merriweather intends to pay off his debt, right? He's like, okay, well, however much the damages cost, I'll pay it. Fletch assumes that it's going to be $30-$40, which, looking at the calculator, in 1963 would be about $330 today. So a good chunk of change. And he doesn't have $330, or as he describes it, 14 pounds, 3 shillings, and a picture of a cat. I got nothing. I don't know what to.
That's 14 shillings, 17 quid, 18 rupees, 7 gil, and 33 money, spelled MUNNIE. 73 credits from Batman Beyond. Oh no, my fictitious England money.
Andy says, well, maybe there's another way to do this. Maybe you can work off the debt. So here's the thing, right? Andy, of course, is like, I've got work to do around my house, because Andy's just like, once again, he's just like, well, I got someone over a barrel. I could put them in jail, or I could have them do work for me.
Do you think he gave the guy his $40? Do you think Andy was like, hey, he's going to do housework for me. I'm going to give you $40. Or do you think he was just like, hey, he's going to work at my house and you can suck one. How about that?
In order to make any sort of justice whatsoever out of this, Malcolm would have to work for Farmer Fletch.
Yeah.
Wouldn't he? Yeah.
Or Andy
Fletch is the guy whose truck is broken.
Or Andy has to give the guy money, which I am very confident he did not.
Because we don't see that guy for the rest of the episode.
Yeah, like the guy was just like, hey, what about my $40? And Andy was just like, hey, what about my $40? Shut up.
No. So the next scene, again, we've seen this before. We've seen Andy going prison labor before. It's very strange how this particular episode is like a mixture of plot elements from 3 or 4 episodes we've seen before, and shouldn't work, but it does. Malcolm, the first thing we see him do is break a window with a ladder because he doesn't understand it. Opie shows up. They have a little conversation about England, blah, blah, blah.
It's delightful, Andy bonding with this guy. Also, the ladder thing is so well shot. Bob Sweeney was sober for this episode. The ladder thing is so well shot that it actually prompted me to go, no, out loud. Because he's just so innocently setting up the ladder and then hard cut to the window breaking.
Basically, what starts the whole thing off is Opie asks, what's for dinner? And Malcolm says, oh, I can fix dinner. That's something I'm much better at than whatever it is I'm doing here with this ladder. And that's how it kind of
turns into
off.
Malcolm is just like, because Andy rolls up and Andy sees the broken window and he's like, shit, I guess that's fine. And Malcolm's like, hey, let me make you dinner and also clean up because that's kind of more of my wheelhouse. And Andy's like, I guess, sure. And then Andy returns home later. The house is clean, and Opie comes down in a little suit with like his hair,
a little velour suit.
Yeah, with his hair like combed to the side, and he's like, "What is happening?"
And he looks adorable.
He's like, he made me put on a suit because it's called dressing up for dinner. He made me take a bath. It's only Wednesday. I'm freaking out a little bit. And Andy's just kind of like, ha ha.
Yeah, Andy's having so much fun with it. He's like, no. You're going to keep that suit on. We're going to make you super fancy. And then Malcolm comes in and it's like, oh, welcome home, Mr. Taylor, sir. Let me draw you a bath. And
it's like, and I'll prepare your suit. And Andy's like, and not like, no, I'm an adult. You're not going to make me take a bath. He's like, all right, you're the second person in 2 episodes that's at all confident, so I guess you're bathing me? I don't really know what to do when people stand up for themselves.
Andy is so conflict averse in this that he just pretty much just rolls over and lets this little Pillsbury doughboy of a man just run. There's only one line.
Him.
There's only one line he draws, and that is like Andy demands to be able to put on his own pants.
That is the line that made me laugh for the first time in the history of this TV show. Is it's like a hard cut to like him being served by Malcolm, and then just suddenly just him going like, "No, give me my pants. You're not putting my pants on for me. Give them." And Malcolm's like, "Well, no, sir." And he's like, "No, give me my fucking pants." It's a great moment.
They have a nice fancy dinner. He makes him some kind of nice soup, some bangers and mash, bubbles and squeak, Britishism. There's an okay bit where Barney Kramer's in, just enters the frame, is just like, "Hey," and he runs in, basically sticks his head in. "Hey, Andy, you want to go to the gas station and get a bottle of pop?"
An insane thing to ask a friend to do. Like, "Hey, Marty, do you want to go to Wawa?" Not even Wawa. "Do you want to go to a 7-Eleven gas station and get a couple of Arnold Palmers?" Does that sound like a thing you want to take time out of your schedule to do as friends?
I mean, having not left the house for several months, if you invited me to do that, I would scream, yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
if you sent me that text, I would go, "Yes, please, let's do this." Mask on and then go. But under normal circumstances, I would kind of go,
"Dan, get out of my house."
No? Yeah, Dan. Right. That's true. I had the assumption that you would like send me a text or something,
No.
but this is you entering my home.
No, just like, "Hey man, I walked over here. Do you want to go get a soda? Like, sit somewhere and drink a soda?" "No, a gas station." Like, do you want to walk into a place, get a soda, and then leave that place as friends? Does that sound good to you? Does that sound a way you want to spend your evening, Marty, my good friend?
And shit, dude. I mean, no, honestly, like, maybe it's quarantine getting to me, but there's no way that doesn't sound lovely.
I'll be sure to put that on the books eventually.
So, side note, I'm recording in a place that isn't mine. So if the audio quality sounds different, that's why. And their, like, robot vacuum just kicked on without warning. So now I'm watching this fucking thing, steal my headphones. Oh, shit! Shit! No, give those back!
Oh, God. I genuinely thought he'd seen some sort of ghost. You woke.
I had a pair of headphones on my back. I had a pair of headphones like next to my backpack that was on the floor, and I didn't expect this robot vacuum to kick in during recording, and it just grabbed a bunch of wires out of my bag and just dragged them out. Fuck.
Oh, God. Oh, that's it. You gotta watch out for those Roombas, man. They'll fuck you up if you give them a chance. They're constantly probing for weaknesses.
It's not even a Roomba. They're way too cheap to buy a Roomba. It's like a Doomba. It's like a
like an off-brand.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
It's got little like googly eyes on it. And like it smokes constantly coming out of the back.
So Malcolm serves him dinner. There's a bit where like Barney comes in and Malcolm's like, "Oh, shall I make another place for the table, sir, for supper?" And Barney feels very like underdressed in Andy's house, so he makes a bunch of excuses and leaves.
And says, "I need to go home to pick out my outfit for the evening. I haven't dressed for the evening yet," because he immediately assumes that this is a normal thing that everybody does that he didn't know he was supposed to be doing because he is a stupid, insecure moron.
It's okay. It's a good bit.
Andy Griffith does some fantastic eye screaming in this. Like, just like, "Barney, do you want to join us for dinner?" I scream, I scream, I scream. No, I'm good. I gotta go home and put on my suit that I always do. "Are you sure that you don't want to join us for dinner?" Like, it's just great that Andy is like immediately wildly uncomfortable with this whole situation.
The next scene, the next day at breakfast, is Opie getting super... Opie loves Malcolm,
yeah.
And it's so cute. I love this bit. I love Malcolm, like, doting on Andy and Opie so much. He's drawing faces on eggs, like eggshells for Opie.
I think not a uniquely British thing, but
it's cute. Whatever.
Yeah, it's delightful.
Like Malcolm is bringing the newspaper. He says he's got Andy wearing his tie, his full uniform, including wearing his hat. He's like, "Oh, I found your hat for you in the back of the closet, sir. It just needs a little brushing, but I'll have it ready for you in a jiffy." Andy tried, like, there's this funny bit of Andy like, "Nope, I gotta go. I gotta get out of here. Bye, bye." He's like, "All right, Opie, you're on your own. Bye."
Yeah.
And just bails on his son. And Malcolm is already out by the car, which is like a full-on town car. I don't know where the hell this came from.
Yeah, he just like got his hands on a car. It's great because like Opie's like, "I love Mr. Malcolm. He's so fun and whimsical." And Andy's like, "Listen, Ope, I gotta bounce. Just don't say anything. I gotta go." And then sneaks out and Malcolm is fucking waiting for him there. It's so good.
I like the idea that maybe Malcolm is just like actually extremely useful and extremely resourceful, but he cannot help himself at all.
Yeah.
He can only use his abilities in the service of others.
Yeah.
And he's so happy. He's so happy butlering.
It's great. It's so fantastic. And he like, it's kind of weird because he, when he puts Andy in the car, he drapes a blanket over him, which is some shit you would do for an old ass military veteran in England. So he kinda is projecting the Colonel onto Andy.
100%.
Yeah. It's like this dude has been brainwashed into like gleeful servitude. It's very, very creepy. The way he's just like, yes, Lord, let me serve you. I love it. I'm so horny for servitude. Please let me butler for you. I can't. I need to serve. Please. Oh God. Like,
let me ask a question. I'll probably wind up cutting this, but when 1960s audiences heard the phrase "a gentleman's gentleman," was that supposed to be like a friend of Dorothy kind of thing? Was that supposed to be like a code word?
I feel like it could totally be coded that way. Of like, Malcolm is giving Andy unwanted gentlemanly affection. Because it's not like he's just too helpful. He's up in his zone.
Well, I'm even just reading it from like that what you just said, where he's projecting the Colonel onto Andy. Like, he's away from the man he loves.
Oh.
And he says he's on holiday, but like maybe the Colonel's dead. Like maybe he recently lost the man that he loves and is projecting that onto Andy.
Yeah, he's traveling the world because the older man that he loved died, and he thought he'd found a new Colonel in Andy, which and then Andy kind of pushed him away.
It's potential. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I like it. I like this headcanon. But yeah, he gets his hands on a town car somehow, drives Andy into work. Puts the blanket on him, whatever, and makes him sit in the back.
And not just like puts it over his lap, puts it on his lap and then drapes it over his shoulders in a way that no one could possibly want. Andy Griffith is so visibly uncomfortable. It's fantastic.
The next scene is Barney and Andy coming back from work to Andy's house. And Barney's like, "You need to tell this guy Malcolm to knock it off or set some boundaries," which probably true.
Yeah.
But Mayberry is just a land of extremes.
Mm-hmm.
No one can just be like, "Hello, Malcolm. Yes, it is okay when you do this and this, but not when you do this and this. Please knock that off." No, it's all or nothing with these people.
Yeah.
And they open up the door, and Malcolm and Opie are playing on they're having fun. Like, he built one of those like paper ladders, like you push it up with a newspaper and like streamers fly everywhere. And they hear Malcolm Malcolm says how much he's enjoyed working. "I've really enjoyed being with an American family. This has been the best part of my holiday, is taking care of you and your father. I've loved being here. This actually means so much to me," because he doesn't know what to do when he's not serving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That aspect is pretty sad. actually. Like,
I'm glad that we're going to see, like, I looked ahead, we are going to see Malcolm Merriweather at least 2 more times.
really?
Like, he's going to be a recurring character in here. But I was just like, can we get this, like, regularly? I love the idea of Andy being, like, a good old boy Southerner who just has an English butler for some reason. I loved that perspective. Make this a regular thing. It's so good. But yeah, he is really committed to it, so it means a lot to him. And then... so that's kind of it, and we kind of get another fade, and then the next scene is Barney rolling up and dropping off their uniform. It's later that night. They go out to the porch, Barney and Andy, and they're talking. Basically, they start talking mad shit about Malcolm.
Yeah!
And Malcolm can hear them. He came downstairs to get something for Opie, and hears them through the window saying, boy, Malcolm's really nice, but man, I need him to stop. We got to get rid of him.
I hate everything he's doing, and it makes me very, very uncomfortable. And Malcolm just, like, goes back upstairs very sadly.
I mean, we can pretty much wrap up the episode from here.
Yeah.
Next morning, Malcolm has left. He left a note saying he had to be called away very suddenly. He would send the money. And Opie is very sad. Opie's just sitting there like, what? Why did this guy leave us? What happened? Where is Malcolm? I'm not hungry. I want faces on my eggs. I was really enjoying this.
I'm developing abandonment issues as we speak.
The way they figure out what happened is, Barney comes over. They find out that Malcolm left. There's this great bit where there's a knock at the door. And Opie's like, Malcolm's back, Malcolm's back, Malcolm. He opens the door and it's like, it's only Barney. God, it's Barney. They figure out that Malcolm overheard them because they see the stuff that Malcolm like went to pick up and then left there when he left. And Andy goes, well, I'm going to go out and look for him. Malcolm has gotten, I don't know, 2 miles because he's on bike. At most.
Finding him takes all of 35 seconds.
Yeah, he pulls over Malcolm and he's like, he does his like Andy Griffith thing where he doesn't ever say, please come back. He's like, what are you doing? You got a lot of nerve trying to run away like that. We got to get you back to do some wobble dangling and woolly wobbles and drawing faces on eggs. And
you got to do some heffalumps and woozles in my house. He yells at him while smiling twice, and it's the move.
It's the Andy Griffith move where he like winks and nods, whatever, and then Malcolm goes, "Okay, I'm gonna come back now." And the final stinger is Aunt B is back home. Malcolm is teaching her how to do all the things, saying that bubbles and squeak and bangers and mash in the freezer. A whole dozen eggs with faces on them until you get the hang of it. Okay. And it's just Andy and Opie speaking in fake British slang to make fun of Aunt B who can't understand them. And it's funny.
We have been making fun of the fake British slang. The real ones that I did take down are a regular Bobby Dazzler, and fix you some snap. You both seem proper clemmed. Like
I think that one might be real.
No way in fucking hell is fix you some snap a term for making you lunch and proper clemmed. No, absolutely not.
I'm going to say it might be real.
England is a real place full of real human beings. You can't say this stuff about them.
I have been there. Yes, I know.
Yeah. Treat these people with respect. They would never say, you seem clemmed. They would never say disagree. Bobby Dazzler. How dare you?
Agree to disagree. So that's it. Ratings. I love this episode. I love Malcolm Merriweather. It's a 9 for me. It's only a 9. Like, it's not a 10 because the jokes get a little repetitive. But
it's a 10 on the Andy meter and it's a 4 on the MASH meter.
I don't know, man. I like this better than I like a lot of episodes of MASH. I like this a lot. It was good. And Barney meter, other than like Barney's rampant xenophobia, which no one ever like checks or anything.
Yeah.
Like, so 4 or 5? No, probably I'm gonna stick it at a 4.
Yeah, it's like a 4. Honestly, I'm gonna put it like a 2. There's not really enough like meat on any of the bones to be that offensive. There's like one line of xenophobia. Oh, actually, you know what I am gonna say? A servant who's really, really, really into being a servant. It's not good.
Not ideal.
Yeah,
Not ideal.
it's kind of some Dobby shit.
Love yourself, Malcolm.
Yeah,
like, take a day off.
Yeah, we're getting into that's like a little bit of a problematic stereotype, but other than that, we're cool. Like a 4.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, two fine episodes of the Andy Griffith Show. I'm not worried about it because we've still got some ridiculous shit to go in the future. We've got some guests lined up that I'm excited for. But that was just a quick one, folks. Thanks for hanging out with us. I'm just going to wrap us up. As always, on the internet, you can find me. I am at Schneid Remarks on Twitter. That's SCHNEID Remarks.
I'm at the Luds, 2 Ds.
And on Twitter, our show is at Break Mayberry, Facebook.com/Breaking Mayberry, Instagram Breaking Mayberry, Patreon.com/Breaking Mayberry. Music you just heard and we'll hear in a second is by Max Ludwig, who is on Twitch as at Sleep Talkie. And
please rate, review, and subscribe. If you do so, I will talk to you on the phone for 5 minutes at your discretion. No sex stuff.
You're still going with that.
I'm still going with that. I'm going to do it at least once.
That's really it for us. Please continue to tune in. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see y'all down at the fishing hole.